Top base and base 62B or the bottom of the page. Oh, it's over here. Sorry, something missing. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay. At 2 dots, Minani Mili. Okay, so we said that kafel applies to kafel applies to all types of robberies, both an actual robber and what we call a toyin tainis ganef, right? Somebody a watchman who claims an item was stolen from him, and he actually is the thief. With regard to Dalad v'hei, meaning if you stole a sheep or an ox, a cattle, so sheep or cattle, and okay, so if you stole sheep or cattle and then you slaughtered or sold it, you pay 4 or 5. What happens if you're toyin tainis ganef? Meaning you were a watchman, you claim it was stolen, you're actually the thief, and then you slaughter it or sell it. Are you liable for 4 or 5 or not? And we said that was machlekes. The Mishnah's specific point here is that dalad v'hei is limited just to sheep and cattle, nothing else. Whereas kafel includes every category of stolen item. So far, we saw an exception. This was yesterday and reviewed again today for documents and property or slaves. Okay, so let's review what we saw yesterday and go right through it. Minani Mili. How do we know this? Toner Rabbanon. I called, but brother, it's just a disclosure. This Gemara, I believe, is one of the reasons why I stopped Daf Yomi last cycle. It's that difficult. It's so confusing. So I'll do my best. I hope we can do a daf today. And I hope I can do enough of a job to explain it. It wasn't just this one, but this certainly was a big part of it. It was in Meruba where I stopped. Okay. And hopefully you saw the 3 psukim I sent out last night. If you had a chance to.
Yeah, you get a chance.
If you didn't have to. Okay, we'll try to go through it briefly. It's 3 psukim, and those 3 is basically today and tomorrow. Those 3 verses are today and tomorrow. This is the 3rd of the verses. Probably worthwhile just to go through them in order. Go through them. Just give me a second. Pull it up here. I'm going to pull it up on my phone and read it off of my phone. There it is. Okay, so let's read it. Let's just read it over together. If you're looking for it, it's Shemais, Exodus 22:6, Chaf Beis Vav. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking here about a watchman. I'm reading from the Chumash. If a man gives his friend kesef aykelim lishmar, right? He gives him vessels or money to watch. V'gunav mibeisa ish, and it was stolen from his house. If you find the robber, you pay twice. Sounds reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's say you don't find the robber. The owner. I'm sorry. The watchman will come in front of the court.
So it's the household.
I'm sorry.
The household comes forth.
Yeah, the householder is the watchman.
Oh, is the watchman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The other party's house.
Huh?
The other party's house.
Oh, the other watchman.
Right.
Oh,
Okay, so he approaches the court. Okay, this is a reference to an oath. So to affirm that it's not his fault the item is stolen.
Mm.
Okay, again, so let's go summarize. The first pasuk is there's a watchman, the item was stolen, we find the thief pays twice. Fair enough. The second verse is if you don't find the thief, okay, im lo yimotzi haganev. It simply means that we don't find the thief, but we'll see it actually means something else. We'll get to it. So then what happens? V'nikra b'albayis Elohim. Elohim here means the court to affirm im lo yishalach yadam l'chas re'eo. Okay. Last verse. A kol dvar pesha, on any type of negligence. On a few examples, al shor on an ox, al chamor on a donkey, al seh for a sheep, al salma on clothes, al kol aveda on any lost object. Asher yomer kihuzah, they have this question. Ana lihim yavar dvar shneim. The watchman will go to court over all these items. Asher yashina lihim yishalom shneim l're'eo. This that the court will evaluate, he will pay twice. Okay. Now we'll see. We have really so again, just to summarize it. Again, we have first pasuk says you found the thief, you pay twice. Second pasuk says if you don't find the thief, you make an oath. And then finally, on any negligence, you pay twice. 5 examples of negligence. You're not 5 examples on what type of item you are negligent. What are they? There's a shor, cattle, chamor, a donkey, seh, a sheep, salma, a garment, and al kol aveda, any lost object. 5 examples. And what does Torah say? You pay twice. If you're negligent, you pay twice. Now, this second verse seems to be a bit odd. You're already looking at you already have your eyes.
No,
It's a little interesting. Why? Because the Torah already said if you find the thief. What is the scenario here? You're paying twice. You found the thief, of course the thief pays twice. We already specified that. So, and what does it mean you're negligent? If you're negligent, you don't pay twice. Let's explain. If you are a watchman
right,
and you're negligent, and I don't know, you have a sheep, and I don't know, you cross the I-5 with the sheep, and sure enough, the sheep is hit by a car. You might say it's a little bit negligent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So of course you have to pay, but you don't have to pay kafel. You don't have to pay twice. You have to pay once.
Mm.
So what's going on here? We'll see.
Because he was lying, stealing, so he has to pay twice.
He didn't lie. I'll admit it. He admitted he
Oh,
did
he
something
admitted
stupid.
he
Oh,
did?
now you're saying something.
Oh.
What are we talking about here? We're talking about someone who's lying. So in other words, that's the last. You're right. You're right. That is what the last verse is talking about. It's not just that you were negligent, which is the simple. If I had to read the verse very simply, that's what it would imply. It's not just negligence, but it's also lying going on, and we'll explain that shortly. Okay, that's for now. Now let's begin. We have a bunch of things to focus on. Let's start the Gemara. Kol dvar pesha. Okay, this is the last of the 3 verses. Any amount of negligence. What is that klal? That's a general rule. Al shara, chamor, al seh, al salma, prat. Those are all specific examples. 4 specifics: cattle, donkey, sheep, and clothes. Al kol aveda, on any lost object. That's a pretty big category. Chazar v'kolel. That's another klal, broad category. What do we have? Klal uprat klal. Broad, specific, broad. Iatadon elakana prat. How are we gonna judge this? We're gonna try to find the common denominator amongst all the pratim, all the specifics, and explain that the general rule includes anything in this common denominator. Maha prat mefurish davar metaltal v'gufei mammon. Just like the specifics include anything that is movable and itself has value. Af kol davar metaltal v'gufei mammon. Anything that's movable and it itself has value. Property is not movable. Slaves are exempt. They are compared to property. Documents have no intrinsic value. It's only the value that they are the value that they have to collect. So hektish, hektish is not included. Because it says your friend's property and not hektish. Hektish you would not pay kefil. Okay, if this is the case, ima problem first davarshim. Okay, now the Gemara tries to drill down the specifics. Again, this verse talks about kefil. What are we trying to do? We're trying to say that kefil basically is a very wide category. It includes basically everything, which is exactly what the Mishnah says. Whereas dalad v'hei 4 and 5, 4 cattle, 5 sheep is very specific. It's if you do cattle or you do sheep. It's the only 2 options. Okay. So far we're good, right? We made it. We made the point. The point is that kefal includes everything, and we've made that point. Now the Gemara combats that point. Ima hapram before davar shnevelosim etama b'mago b'masa. Av kol davar shnevelosim etama b'mago b'masa. Aval oifis loy. Okay, so let's look at the specifics. We said there were 4 specifics, right? Cattle, sheep, donkey, and clothes. Well, what's the common denominator between cattle, sheep, donkey? Nevelosim etama b'mago. Meaning when they die, there's tumah to their dead bodies, to their carcasses. Let's exclude birds. If you stole someone's parakeet, or I think it's called a macaw, right? That's the big bird?
Yeah.
The macaw, which I was always fascinated by as a kid. Somebody steals somebody's macaw, or let's say a kosher bird, like a dove. Then you should not have to pay kefal, because the Torah specifically says animals. Okay, is that a legitimate argument? Let's try to examine it. 1 second. One of the items is clothes. Clothes is inanimate. Okay, so Gemara says you're right. Yeah, you're right. Clothes is inanimate because there's a whole category of stealing that includes inanimate objects, right? You can steal any inanimate object, and that effectively is included by the category of clothes. We're proposing the fact that the Torah gives 3 limitations with regard to live animals, right? Again, cattle, sheep, and donkey. Then that should be a limiting principle that if you steal a live animal, it's got to be a live animal whose carcass is tummy. But if you steal a macaw or a dove, then you'd be exempt, or chicken for that matter, you'd be exempt. Okay, so the Gemara says, in other words, like we explained, as it pertains to live animals, there should be a limiting principle of carcass being tummy. As it pertains to inanimate objects, really any type of inanimate object is included under the rubric of salma, right? Clothing. Okay. Why? Because this is an example where you have 4 pratim, 4 specifics. So each one obviously is coming to give you a specific set of rules. Why the Torah need to give you 4 examples? Aval oifis loy, but birds should be exempt. Let's say chickens and macaws exempt. So the Gemara says, Im ken echtav rachmana chad prata. The Torah should write 1 specific. Okay, yeah, is that the case? In other words, the Gemara is proposing, okay, so you have 4 specifics. Torah didn't need to write all 4. Could have just written 1. In fact, Torah wrote 4. What does it tell me? It tells me that we should make a common denominator between all 4 and exclude birds. Okay, not so fast. Okay, so in other words, you're proposing that it could have stated any single example of one of these 4 specifics. Okay, which one could it have written? Because Rahman Shar have me Karl Gamizbech and Karl Gamizbech light. Okay. It couldn't have said ox. Why? Ox could not be the soul specific. Because if ox was the soul specific, I would say it has to be eligible for a sacrifice. Right? For example, a deer, right, or an elk or a bison, even though they're eligible as kosher animals, they're not sacrificial animals. They're wild animals. So that specific alone would not be a wide enough rubric. Fair? Okay. So that's not going to work. Because if it would have just said donkey, a donkey has a very unique feature. It's the only non-kosher animal that has a religious significance to its firstborn child. Right? There is religious significance to every kosher domesticated animal. But there is no religious significance, meaning that animal is typically a korban. It's brought as a sacrifice. Right. But there is no religious significance to a your first horse, right? First male horse. Nobody cares, except for a donkey. All of a sudden, I don't know if everyone's seen. It's on YouTube. Highly recommended, by the way. Oh. It's good to see. It's a very unique mitzvah when a donkey has its firstborn is a male child. There's some videos on YouTube of it happening. It's very uncommon, and the main reason for that is because you actually have to raise the donkey from pre-puberty, a female donkey, from pre-puberty, and the first child has to be male, which isn't a usual occurrence. It's a big mitzvah. It's called Peter Chamor, redeeming of the firstborn donkey. Okay, you give it to a kohen. It's a big ceremony. If you can go watch it on YouTube, highly recommend. Okay. And every couple of years is a story of it happening. It's not a common thing, as you might expect. Okay, Shein Kodesh B'char Eloi. Okay, so that donkey alone is not significant, because that wouldn't tell me, right, that a horse, let's say if you steal a horse, you pay kefil. If you steal a horse, I think you wouldn't pay kefil, because it doesn't have pidyon b'char. Okay. Okay, fine. So right, donkey and ox, cattle. Selamli, what do you have to write a sheep? Okay, fine. So the fact that it has to write all three, that tells me that a bird is included. Hold on, but there's still a common denominator. Maybe only the chicken and the dove is included. But if you steal a macaw, then you wouldn't be liable. 1 second. Okay. Okay, there's a unique feature to a bird which has tumah at the area where it's slaughtered. In other words, the basic idea here is that only kosher. In other words, there is some tumah to the carcass of an animal, as well as kosher birds. Except kosher birds have a minor form of tumah, which is called tumah beis. The place where you slaughter them has tumah. But non-kosher birds don't even have that. They shouldn't be included at all. Again, so we're back to the original question. How do we know that kefil includes basically everything you can steal? 3 exceptions so far, and they were property, slaves, documents. Documents here obviously means debt. Okay. So Gemara says, Kol ribuyahu. Okay, what does the verse begin with? Al kol dvar pesha. We began by saying kol dvar pesha, any form of negligence, is actually a klal. It's a general statement. And now we're saying, no, it's not a general statement. Kol is actually an inclusive statement. And kol tells me to include basically everything. Because kol means everything, right? Kol ribuya. Okay, so the Gemara says, yes, not so quickly. The kol hechadiksiv kol ribuyahu. Is it the case that every time the word kol is used, it is a riboy, an inclusive statement, as opposed to a klal, a general statement? V'hagavi meiser. We're going to prove. Let's look at meiser. The chsiv kol, the word kol is used. Kol meaning everything. V'kadorish le b'chlal prat, and we use that as a generalized statement, not as an inclusive statement. Let's see it. Okay. V'nosata hakesef b'chol asher sav nafshecha. Okay. So you have meiser sheni. Right, you're going up to Jerusalem. What is Ma'aser Sheni? Just very briefly, years number 1, 2, 4, 5. You have a commandment to take remaining 10% after you removed a bunch of tithes. Remaining 10%, eat it in Jerusalem. Okay, so what do? You separate the 10%. You get ready to bring it to Jerusalem. You bring it to Jerusalem. What do you spend? Now, let's say you have tomatoes. It's too far away, so you redeem it on a coin. Maybe now you have money. What are you going to spend the money on in Jerusalem? You buy yourself a new car? No, not going to work that way. You have to spend it on what? As follows. If you take the money, anything you want to spend. Taiva here, it's got to be taiva, so you have to desire it. It has to be food, probably. Okay? That's a very general statement. General statement. Now we give some examples. Babakar, cattle, bitzayin, sheep, biyayin, wine, b'sheichar, liquor, prat. Those are 4 specifics. V'chol asher tish'ol chanafsha, and anything that your soul desires. What is that? Cause of a klal, right? The Torah puts it back into a general statement. So we open with a general statement, we conclude with a general statement, and we give 4 specifics in the middle. Klal of prat to klal. This is what I was saying to myself last night. Klal of prat to klal. Iyatadon elakana prat. General, specific, general. What is the rules? Elaka and haprat, like the specifics, the 4 specifics. Mahaprat mefurish primi pri v'gedule karka. Just like the specifics are pre. What does that mean? Pre means one fruit here. I'm using in the loosest possible term. Okay, it doesn't mean literally a fruit. Fruit meaning the reproductive process. The fruit of the reproductive process is reproduced. Pre means the fruit is reproduced. Okay. An example of something that's not reproduced is water. Another example is salt. A third example is mushrooms. Right? Fruit from fruit means reproduction. So, in other words, mushrooms don't reproduce, in the sense that one mushroom doesn't you plant a mushroom, you don't get a mushroom tree, right?
Right.
One mushroom doesn't mate with a second mushroom to give a mushroom child, like an animal, right?
Right.
So, in other words, animals reproduce by mating. What do you call it? Plants reproduce by regrowing, sexual or asexual reproduction. Okay, but water, where are we? Water, salt, what's the other one? And mushrooms don't reproduce. Okay, the gedule karka grows from the ground. Roughly speaking, what does that mean? That means that they're sort of involved with the ground, meaning the dry land. And this, as you can figure already, excludes fish. No salmon with your money.
Oh.
Can't buy salmon. Or tuna for that matter, whatever you have. Okay, I've called primi gedule karka. Okay, so we have two general statements here. Okay, so basically, let's just review this for a second. So we have Ma'aser Sheni. Torah says bring any type of foods, anything your heart desires. Okay, then bring four specifics. What is it? Cattle, sheep, wine, and liquor. Wine and liquor. Separate categories. All those items basically are involved with the ground. And that ground reproduces itself, right? Whether the liquor is made out of wheat or barley, whatever. I guess the mushroom liquor is not going to work. I don't think you can make it. I don't think you can make a mushroom liquor anyway. I don't think there's starch in there, whatever. Okay, regardless, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so there we have a klal, prat, klal. What do? We take the pratim, the four specifics, we abstract them. What does that mean? We make a common denominator conceptual framework, which is pre reproduction. Gedule karka, it's involved with the ground. Gedule karka is obviously to the best of my knowledge, at least, you don't have a sheep tree, right? They sort of eat the ground and then they become bigger from a non-farmer. Okay. The problem here is that what's the first klal? Bechol asher sav nafshecha. What do we have? Bechol is the word kol. What are we taking with the word kol? We're turning it into a klal, a general statement, not into an inclusive statement, which contradicts the previous Gemara. The Gemara says kol al kol dvar pesha, on any type of negligence. Kol, keywords. And we're saying that kol is not a general statement in regard to any type of negligence. Rather, it's an inclusive statement. It includes any type of negligence, whether that negligence refers to a makor, right? Or refers to a donkey or an ox or a table or garment. And it's not a general statement. And over here, we're saying that bakol is a general statement. So which is it? Is the word kol, is it a general statement or is it an inclusive statement? Right? Because in truth, the matter is that when you have klal, prat, klal, general, specific, general, even the klolim are limiting because they become limited by the pratim. Right? Whereas an inclusive statement says, despite all your limitations, I'm gonna add some more. Okay, so what's the simple resolution? Amri bakol klola, kol ribuyu. Very simple. Okay, simple resolution number one is the word bakol, which is used by Meiser, bichol asher savin afshecha. Bichol means within everything. Within everything, that's a general statement, which it sort of is. And again, no English professor here, but okay. But the word kol is sort of an inclusive statement. Kol means everything. Bring it all in. It doesn't say that it's within a category. Bakol is putting it inside of a category. Kol is saying include it all. That's the first resolution. Okay. The another possibility. Kol klolahu. You're right. Kol is typically a general statement. Miu kol dahacha ribuyu. However, in our Gemara, our set of verses is different. Why? Why is it different? Mechti, let's examine this. Ksiv mi kara klala prata klal. We already have another klala prata klal. The first verse. What's the first verse? Kiyitin ishareu kesef. Kiyitin ishareu. When a person gives his friend, well, what's he giving him? Anything, right? That's a very general statement. Kiyitin ish. If I'm going to give you something to watch, I can give you anything to watch.
Mhm.
That's a klal. That's a general statement. Okay. Kesef ikelim, money or vessels. What are those? Those are already specifics. Prat. Lishmar, to watch. Hadavakol. That's another general statement. That's another general statement. I can give you anything to watch. V'saga dechaya kol dar pesha. Nami laklala prat huda also. Nichtem rachmana lahani prat. Egabe he'ech klala prat. Klala prat. I called our pesha. Lama lishma. Minari buyu. Okay. So let's explain. Let's explain here. The problem here is we have two klala prata klals with regard to the verses. I read you the three verses. First verse basically was entrusting to a watchman. It's stolen. The robber, what seems to be the robber, pays twice. The second verse is he claims innocence. He makes an oath. And the third verse says any type of negligence, gives the four specifics. Shar chamor says salma. Right? Go to court, make an oath. If you're guilty, you'll pay twice. We'll have to explain these verses and we'll get to it soon. I don't know at this point how far we'll get, but okay, we'll do our best. Okay. Where are we? Okay, now the Gemara is pointing out here there's an interesting feature here. There are two klala prata klals. One in the first verse, one in the third verse. In the first verse it says kiyitin, you'll give, klal, general statement. Kesef ikelim, money or vessels, specific. Lishmar, to watch till we can watch anything. That's a general statement. Klala prata klal. Now, if we're trying to if the pratim of Shor, Chamor, Se, and Salma were trying to be within a klala prata klal, they should have been in the first verse. Why doesn't the Torah say you give your friend to watch a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or clothes? Shor, Chamor, Se, Salma. Why isn't that in the first verse? Why do you wait till the last verse to put it into a klala prata klal? It must be because the last verse actually is not a klala prata klal. Rather, it's an inclusive statement followed by four limiting statements and a final inclusive statement. And we'll have to explain now. It's our job to explain now. So what are we limiting? What are we including from those statements? Fine, we'll get to it. But at this point, what we're still saying is that the last verse, which appears to have a klala prata klal, is actually not a klala prata klal at all. And therefore, the inclusive word of kol dvar pesha, any type of negligence, that includes basically everything in the category of kefil.
In the category of
Kefil, double payment,
Kefil.
which is the original. That's really what we're looking for. Again, the mission begins meruba tashlumei kefil. Kefil, you pay for any type of robbery, with three exceptions: land, slave, and documents. What's the source? And now we're saying the source is al kol dvar pesha. We good? Okay.
Bloody Mary.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm distracting you.
Okay. 1 second.
That might help us get through the.
Okay. Shmami no ribuya. It must mean that it's an inclusive statement. Okay. Now, okay, fine. So basically, we've established that now let's go back for a second. The klala prata klal of the first verse, right, is give somebody something. The pratim are, that's a general statement. The pratim are kesef ikelim. The pratim are the same as before. In other words, they're dover hametaltal the gufay momen, right? They're movable. Both vessels and money are movable, and they are value. So therefore, that it still excludes property, slaves, and documents. Okay, now that we've undone the second klala prata klal in the third verse, why does the Torah need to specify shor chamor salma, right? Donkey, ox, donkey, cattle, sheep, and clothes. Okay, so let's explain. Chad lamiute karka. One excludes property. V'chad lamiute avodim. One excludes slaves. V'chad lamiute shtaris, and one excludes documents. Salma lamiute dover she'enim mesuyim. Okay. Okay, this is very interesting. Salma is clothing that has identifiable features. Okay, something that does not have identifiable features, you do not pay kefil. Okay, now the final kol aveda for anything, any type of lost objects. What's that coming to include? Look at Rav Chia bar Abba. Rav Chia bar Abba, Rav Yechanan. Rav Chia bar Abba says in the name of Rav Yechanan, "Hatoyin tain is ganev ba. Hatoyin tain is ganev ba aveda mishalim tashlum kefil. Shenemar al kol aveda shel yomer." Okay. Somebody argues that somebody lost an item, somebody else found it, and now the finder says it was stolen. And he's lying. He actually did find it and he hasn't. He also pays kefil. That's also a form of thievery. Now, it's not just if you're a watchman and you say it was stolen, are you a thief? And you also have to pay kefil. It's also if you found it. Shenemar al kol aveda, even a lost object. Okay. It's not wholesome. Let's begin the next Gemara. Hekon piktoini. Guy asks his friend, "Where's my object I gave you?" Amar lei avari. He says, "I lost it." Mashbiachani. He says, "Make an oath." Va'amar amen. And he responds, "Amen." He makes the oath. The witness is saying that actually he was the one who ate it. Mishalim as a Karen. He pays for the value of the stolen item. Hoida al piatzma. Let's say he admits. This is not only an admission that he basically ate something that didn't belong to him, but also that he lied under oath about it. What's the penalty for lying under oath and admitting to it? It's Karen v'chaimish v'osham. So you pay the principal, you pay 20% penalty, plus you have to bring a sacrifice. This is standard, by the way. This is true across all different types of oaths that you lie about. It's not unique here to the fact that he was a watchman. Any oath you lie about, you typically will expect this type of penalty. A similar penalty, by the way, is also in effect if you end up stealing from Hektish, from the sanctuary. Okay. Hey, guy asks his friend, "Where is my object I gave to you?" Amrullah says, "Nignav." He says it was stolen. Mashbiachani, make an oath. Va'amar amen. He says, "Yeah, I'm making an oath." Ve'edim idnai says shiganfai, and the witnesses testify that he himself is the thief. Mishalim tashlum kefil. He pays double payment. If he admits, again, he's admitting that he lied under oath. Mishalim, you pay the classical penalty for lying under oath, which is Karen chaimish v'asham. Principal 20% and sacrifice. Katani Mia, the verse, the Brisa gives an example. But the Brisa here gives an example specifically of somebody who claims the item was stolen. But if a guy argues, let's say he was entrusted with the stolen he was entrusted with the stolen object. He was entrusted with the object to watch. Then he claims it was lost, and actually he himself is the thief. He doesn't say it was stolen, he's the thief. He says it was lost, and he's the thief. The implication of this price is you do not need to pay kefil. Moreover, specifically, kefil is paid when you affirmed under oath that it was stolen, and then it turns out you're the thief. But if you claim it was stolen and you did not affirm it under oath, you would not be liable. In other words, you had to not only claim it was stolen and be the thief, but you have to affirm under oath it was stolen and be the thief. How do we know that? Okay, we'll just begin here because it's complicated. If we start today, maybe it'll be a little easier tomorrow. The Brisa says, if you find the thief, what is that referring to? It's talking about the guy claims. Okay, 1 second. Okay, let's okay. Let's go through the first Brisa quickly, and then I'll explain it, and then we'll stop. Okay. This is the second verse. We said again, there were 3 verses, right? The first verse is sorry, it's the first verse. If you find the thief, the thief pays twice. What does it mean you find the thief? It's talking about where the guy claims that it was stolen and he himself is the thief. You're telling me that it's where the guy claims to be the thief and actually is the thief himself. Maybe it means you actually find the real thief. The thief who actually stole the item, and he's making a legitimate claim. He says there was a thief. A thief actually did steal it, and we find the thief, and we make the thief pay twice. When it says if we don't find the thief, that has to be referring to b'toyin tanis ganav, where a guy claims to be the thief and actually steals it. Okay, so let's just explain this and we'll stop here. Basically, we'll soon see. We'll explore this tomorrow. It's a little complicated as well. But the first verse is you entrust the guy with an item, and you find the thief pays twice. Second verse says if you don't find the thief, he makes an oath, and then in any type of negligence he pays twice. We'll soon see the second scenario, the second verse in Lo Yimatzi Aganav. You didn't find the thief. It's because he stole it. That's why you didn't find the thief. And Lo Yimatzi Aganav, and what did he do? He made an oath. In other words, it's not just sufficient to claim that it was stolen, but you also have had to make the oath. And then what happens? Akol Dvar Pesha, he was negligent, meaning he was the thief. And what does the Torah conclude in the third verse? Yeshalom Shnayim, he pays twice. So the second verse of not finding the thief actually is a reference that not only if you don't find the thief, you have to make an oath, but it's a reference to the verse that comes afterwards. He is the thief, he stole it, he has to pay twice. Now, if that's the case of the last verse, the third verse, and the second verse, it must be that the first verse is the same scenario as well. If you find the thief means you found him as the thief. And he pays twice. Okay, why does the Torah need to give two examples of what's effectively the same thing? And we'll have to see that tomorrow. There's two conflicting prices. This is sort of subject to debate, and we'll discuss this tomorrow.
Stay tuned.
Sure.
Okay.